Well, the Ulster Scots language in Donegal, it's been around and it's still around. If you go about Raphoe, you can still hear, even in the post office, you can get a full phrase of Ulster Scotch any day. But some people were very particular about getting rid of it. I know I had an aunt about 50 years ago that we used to visit the odd time, and she would have been very particular. If you used an Ulster Scotch word at all, she would have been onto you and tried to correct you, as it were. I used to argue with her and say that if the person listening fully understands the person speaking, the whole function of language is fulfilled. But she didn't have any reply to that. So Ulster Scotch is still about, especially with people who maybe didn't go to school too much. They would have been at the national school and maybe even didn't attend that regularly and would be working. You can find small pockets of it in a town land, and then you could get another town land not a mile away where they spoke very careful English. I knew a group of people who were about 3 or 4 houses, and they spoke very careful English. So it's not, but it's still about. In fact, it's surviving remarkably well. For the television is a great educator now. Everybody's looking at the television, and the English that's on the television tends to get brought down. I suppose people who don't look at the telly so much would probably carry the Ulster Scotch further. But I could take you to town lands where it's very much in use yet. Sometimes Ulster Scotch is quite localised. Like I had an uncle who had several words that, a rodden, for instance, is a word that he used, which was a laneway. I think it came from ancient times when in mossy places they cut down bushes and used them to firm up for getting the turf out of the bog and so on. So a rodden was a word that he used. And another word he used was quays. Quays were female cattle, especially young ones. We talked about the cows, there were a lot of quays in them a year. You'd rather have bull calves. They were worth more, I suppose. And there were a lot of quays in them. The ear was another word he would have used that we wouldn't have used at home. And I was down at Manor Cunningham one day. We were in a shed, and I come on a shower, and I said, "There's the Hardy Boys now." And I couldn't even think what the Hardy Boys were, but apparently Hardy Boys were hailstones. It was a hailstone shower, so language can be quite localised. There was a man who my father had employed to cut potatoes and prepare them for seed, in the spring. He was an older man, and it was this evening he stopped. Normally you worked at 6 o'clock. He came in about 10 minutes early, and he was explaining that we had been to school that day and we had heard that a local man had died. And he came in and he explained that he had stopped early because your Witchell was telling me that Sam Wasson was dead. And if there's any word about it at all, it's like to be true. For I was doing and I seen him last Wednesday, and he wasn't well nor middling. That's one phrase that always stuck in my head anyway. And then we had, I remember we used to grow health-stock potatoes, and there was a few fellas about in at Raphoe. They have the place for growing health-stock potatoes, and I was going in to collect the seed. But I was on the phone, and he told me to be sure and be in afore 4:30, for after that they would ask scatter awa.